welcome to Code to Cloud, and I am Kevin Evans, and I am joined today with Corey O'Daniel from Mass Hey Corey, man, what's up?
Hey, doing pretty good. Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Awesome. So this episode I've been circulating, right, in the back channels, on social media, a lot of interest, right, especially for anyone that's been using Terraform for quite a while, as much as I have, right, especially in Azure. And today we're going to be doing OpenTofu, and I reached out to the team at OpenTofu, and they happily volunteered Corey, right? He was nice enough to turn up. But Corey, do you just want to introduce yourself before we get started?
Hi, Corey O'Daniel. I'm the CEO of MassDriver. We're a platform for platform engineering, so we're kind of developed for operations engineers that are familiar with tools like Terraform, Helm, OpenTofu. They want to enable developer self-service, but they don't want to learn an entirely new tool chain. We got involved in the OpenTofu project pretty early on. Pretty much that morning that the news was launched about the Boostle change, I reached out to one of my friends who was at Spacelift, and there was, I guess, already a group of people starting to get together. And so we all got together and tried to figure out like how we could start to build an open source version of Terraform, really start to bring in the community and bring in some of those collaborations that have been stuck in PRs and open issues for years. And yeah, I'd say the rest is history, but it is definitely still like trudging on.
I feel like it's been like a bit of a whirlwind, right? Like the news announced, right? Like later on last year, but like the progress, the team's made already, and getting an organization together, right? Getting developed, like herding sheep. Like you said, you reached out. I believe there's a ascension process to the Linux Foundation as well, right? For OpenTofu as well. So it's going to be like you can't get any more open source than that, right? So
yeah,
that's happening.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because like there's been a ton of work, but it's hard. I feel like it's hard to see a lot of the work that the team's working on, right? Because like right now we're just releasing something that's in parity with Terraform, right? And so behind the scenes, like a lot of stuff has changed. We had to get up all the rigging in place to even support the idea of OpenTofu, right? So like that, like just all the CI pipelines, code to make sure like we are maintaining backwards compatibility with the current version of Terraform, right? So it's like we build something, make sure that it works with like Terraform apply, Terraform plan, like all the Terraform commands so that we have that compatibility so people feel comfortable doing the testing of like seeing if OpenTofu is going to work for them. We've had lots of hurdles thrown in our path along the way. So there was a big change to the licensing terms of the registry. We had to even just figure out and process the licensing terms of Boostle to figure out like how each team was impacted and how we're going to maintain this compatibility going forward since we don't have access to the code. We had to build a registry from scratch since OpenTofu. Anybody who's not familiar, HashiCorp changed the licensing on the Terraform registry, so now only Terraform tooling can access it. So if you've been curling it or using a Ruby library to pull anything from it, you're breaking the law. So we had to build a registry from scratch and then getting into the foundation. So we're in the Linux Foundation. We have an open application to the CNCF, so we'll be going through the sandbox process there.
Oh, wow.
I can share the details for the podcast, for the show notes and podcast. But yeah, I mean, a lot of work. And then we've started to build up the RFC process, reach out to additional collaborators, find other companies that want to be involved and can support, like financially support, bringing on engineers to focus on the project full time. So we've got about 60 contributors from a number of different companies that are working on OpenTofu, as well as a handful of people that work on it full time.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm just looking at the website now. And it's opentofu.org. I like that. Short, simple, and sweet, right? Know where to find it. But yeah, like some of the things that you've just mentioned, like, if you want to get involved, there's the Slack channels, they're on X or Twitter, right? If you're old school like me. And YouTube as well, right? And you can obviously catch out, more information in the show notes for this. But yeah, feature parity, right? I just wanted to run through these things because these things are important. I mean, the community is very big on this. Like, And we'll talk about, existing artifacts and code that I've already developed or spent years developing patterns, right, for infrastructure. But I take it this, the binaries, Windows, Linux, Mac, right? They're all off the shelf, straight out the bat, right? They all support those operating systems. I take it.
Yep, exactly. We support. If you go to the site, we have installation instructions for just about every platform, from Mac to Windows to Alpine.
Nice.
Debian, Red Hat, standalone, Windows. So we got installation options for getting it effectively running everywhere.
Music to my ears, right? Music to my ears. Well, I'm sure we'll sure be turning up in brew packages beforehand, right, and all that good stuff.
We're already in homebrew.
Homebrew, right?
Yeah.
So,
unfortunately, Mac users, the only way I know how to install anything anymore. So I was
it's in Linux. It's in Linux as well, right? Like I use it in Windows System for Linux. I use it in whatever, right?
Awesome.
Ubuntu. Yeah.
Okay. I might leave my noob status and actually start using Linux full time.
But yeah, so I see you've got the screen shared already. You just said that you had to develop your own registry, right? It'd be good to find out where that is, because obviously that was like the go-to place, right? When we were using Terraform beforehand, but you've had to build a registry from scratch. Sounds like you've had to build a lot of frameworks, right? And new processes to support OpenTofu, right? In such a short amount of time as well. Most of this, I take it, is community collaborated driven, right? You're saying you're trying to bring developers on and that kind of thing, but things take time. So, I mean, where is the registry at the moment? Is it GitHub? Is it a website? Where is it?
Yeah, so we actually followed a homebrew style approach to developing the registry. So if you go to GitHub/OpenTofu/registry, that is the registry. So it's a metadata registry and GitHub. And effectively every hour or so, we are hitting all the modules and providers, getting the metadata, and then we publish that to Cloudflare R2. So effectively, the way all the registries work, even Terraform's, is it's effectively like a light proxy over GitHub.
Right, okay.
So the modules are tags, the providers are releases, and so we just essentially made a forwarding mechanism to go through our own registry to send you to the Terraform modules and providers that are there. So what's really cool is I saw a post like 2 days ago on LinkedIn. Masterpoint did a big upgrade, used a ton of esoteric providers, and just swapped the binary, and it just worked. This demo we did this morning, I've done no work. I was even surprised. Like, we have custom providers at MassDriver. I have not added them to the OpenTofu registry, and it just worked this morning. So I was pretty excited that I didn't have to do any extra work to get the demo ready. It's pretty forward to go there, sign your modules or providers, and then put your metadata in there to be able to start appearing in the registry. Now, the one catch is there is no UI today. So if there's anybody listening, like super excited about doing React or Vue or whatever it is in the front end world, and you're just like itching to work on something fresh, like get in touch with us. We'd love to have a UI on the registry as well.
Awesome. Now, front and center, we got the IDE up, right? The mighty VS Code. See a manifest file there already, right? With some different pieces of Azure infrastructure. But before we, let's just start with let's go top to bottom, right? Because I already know the end step, right? But let's go for it. So you've got your manifest. What have we got in front of us here? What we're trying to deploy? And I can see it's written in HCL, right?
Yep. So the code for OpenTofu uses HCL, same Terraform modules that you have today. So what we're doing here is I just grabbed. This is one of MassDriver's Azure modules. So we publish a whole bunch of different modules for 3 clouds. So I just grabbed one this morning for running Postgres Flexible Server. And so we're going to deploy that, configure some private DNS zones, and then connect it to a VNet that I have running in our Azure account.
So I can already see some familiar signs here. We've obviously got the same modules set up there, right? Code looks exactly the same as it should be. Right syntax, right format. I can see we're using variables, right? If we look on the left-hand side in the directory tree, we've got the terraform folder. We've got the variables.tf, the normal structure you would see. Is there any differences whatsoever? I know you just said it was just seamless, like a swap out, but it's looking pretty straightforward to me. And the traditional state files there is there as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. So what you'll notice, like if you look at the binary, a lot of the branding in the binary has changed. So it'll say OpenTofu when it's printing messages out, but all of your file paths and extensions are all still the same. We didn't want people to have to change all their file names to be able to start using OpenTofu. So we changed what we had to change based on the licensing, and then we essentially keep files and paths their normal. Or the existing paths, and even the structure of like your state file remains the same.
Awesome. Are you able to just zoom in on that window a little bit just to make the text a bit more clearer?
Yeah.
Because I know we're going to bring up the terminal, and I just wanted to make sure. Yeah. That's looking better, right? So, in terms of extensions for VS Code, is there an OpenTofu extension yet, or is that on the horizon? Or
ooh, that is a question I was not prepared for.
I am sorry, Corey.
Oh my gosh!
Don't worry, you don't have to answer it now.
Yeah, I'm not positive. I'm not positive. I think I'm just using my Terraform VS Code extension.
I mean, if the ecosystem's there, the ecosystem's there, right? At the end of the day, I think it's just to make that clear for folks, right? But maybe I'll raise it on the GitHub page, right? One day. Yeah. But so why don't we just run through the process? Like, I can't wait to see OpenTofu in it, right? Basically.
Let's go for it. So I've got a couple of things installed. So I've had the tofu binary. I also have the Terraform binary. And so what we'll do today as we walk through this demo, I'll switch back and forth. So just kind of show you the interoperability there. So let's go ahead and get started. So, pretty much I did a brew install already. You might have to do brew update if you're using, if you have an old cache. So brew update and then brew install OpenTofu. So you will install like brew install OpenTofu. So it has the full brand name, but as you're using the tool, it is just tofu. So if we go ahead and do a tofu plan, I'm going to have like a fair number of variable files here just to get to my creds and all that stuff. So
that's cool.
Pardon all the var files, but oops, clicking on the wrong thing there. We'll go ahead and just do a plan. Oh, sorry. Let's do this first. So if you have an existing Terraform module, you'll have to do Terraform init tofu init upgrade. Just to download all the registry stuff again and initialize it for OpenTofu, and you can kind of switch back and forth. Switch it back to Terraform. I can kind of just flip this back and forth, just download the modules, make sure all the signatures are right on the providers, etc. So I will do one more tofu init to get it back into tofu. I feel like I'm being punished here for doing this upgrade both ways. Or maybe I've
real life
signal.
Don't worry about it.
See you.
Are you able to zoom it? It's okay. You can still hear me. I'm still here. Is there a way for you to just zoom in on that terminal a little bit more? I think that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Sweet. There we go. Cool. So I think this moves up a little more so we can kind of see it. Great. So, I just reinitialized it with Terraform. I'll switch it back to OpenTofu, and then we'll get deploying. So I already have a VNet deployed. We're going to be deploying this Postgres flexible server here, and then we'll make a few changes to it, just changing things like the backup retention.
So I can already see it's integrating with Azure provider, right? Latest version by the looks of things. So we didn't have to do anything there. Literally, Terraform in it, right?
That's it. Tofu in it.
Oh, 10 years, right? Tofu in it. Sorry.
It is hard, and they both start with T. So like I just have like that I normally type to get to everything. So yeah. So let's do it. So tofu plan, and we'll just do a regular old plan.
Awesome.
So I'm referencing the bar file that has some of my creds in it, and then I'm referencing this variable file here. While this is planning, we'll go ahead and kind of look at the variables we passed in here. So not using any add-ons, PG vector, PG bouncer, set SKU name here, set the storage megabytes. So pretty much just like just a pretty standard configuration, configuring the module, telling what network to connect to. You can see this plan has completed here. Let's go ahead and pop this open, and it looks like what you would expect from a Terraform plan. So we can see there's our server getting ready to get set up. And now we're ready to apply this bad boy. Just ready to do some Postgres. So I'll go ahead and just hop back up here, do apply. And then what we'll do is after this apply, this might take a while to provision the subnet and the Postgres instance. But once this is up, what I'll do is I'll reinitialize the metadata, like kind of the metadata that Terraform and Tofu use to manage your infrastructure. I'll reinitialize it for Terraform, and then I'll make the changes using Terraform, and then we'll reinitialize it and we'll tear it down with OpenTofu, just so you can kind of see that you can actually just switch back and forth. And so one of the things that we're looking for right now for people that are interested is it is compatible with your state, with your CLI. So if you're doing any testing in your CI right now, and you can spare, just cloning that CI pipeline and just swapping out for the Tofu binary, we'd love to get feedback from everybody to see if they're having any sort of issues with any compatibility. But we've had some pretty large code bases run so far and had no issues with compatibility. But again, like just getting as much input there, different scenarios, different providers, modules, etc., would be fantastic. So you see it's starting to create the DNS zone for our database. So we should start seeing the Postgres instance come up here in a minute.
I mean, the whole process so far has been pretty much the same as it had always been, right?
Great, yeah. Right? Like that's the goal, right? And so, we've kind of committed to making sure that we are compatible with Terraform. So we're currently working towards 1.7 parity. We just released 1.6 parity, while we're also starting to incorporate some of our own features. So one of the big things that people have been wanting for years in Terraform, that was one of our first RFCs, was client-side encryption. So early on, I think back in August or September, we had a demo of client-side encryption, but we went back, contacted the person that had opened the issue originally on Terraform. They'd been sitting open for a number of years. They came in and worked on an RFC. So we went through a full RFC process, like designed an RFC process that we're going to be using for new functionality. And that RFC has just been approved. All the tickets have been created for how to integrate this client-side encryption with OpenTofu. So that's pretty exciting. Hoping to see that ship sometime soon.
I love the fact that you're trying to run those like parity tests, like deploying it with Tofu, then change something in Terraform, then going back to Tofu, right, to validate it, that kind of thing. I think that's, these are the kind of scenarios that people are going to be looking for, especially the enterprise, right? It's taken a lot of customers a long time just to pick a technology, so reducing the pain is only going to increase adoption, right? So
yeah. And what I do locally, I'm a person that loves being tortured a little bit. Like love hot food, and I love seeing a little chaos while I'm developing locally. So I actually have mine, the thing that applies my HCL code, random. So I just have an alias and it'll switch them on me. So I do this just so I can see if I run into any sort of incompatibilities. But I don't know if anybody wants to go that far. It's a bit torturous, but yeah, I mean it's pretty seamless so far, which is really nice, right? So I mean that's what we want. We want it to be boring. We want it to be easy to switch over, and we want to make sure that people are able to have an open source version of Terraform that they can depend on.
I mean that's the key thing there, right? Like what is the big goal, right? It's to create an open source version, right, of Terraform. So, well, I say created, it is created, right? But I think we've had talks in the past, but then you're also trying to solve some of the other issues, right, that were associated with using Terraform in the past, right? I'd like to understand if there's anything about state management, right? Because that's that thing in itself, right, is always an issue, right? How do you manage state the right way? And I know it's different for each, wherever you're deploying it or how you're running it, but like that kind of thing is, it's a tough cookie to crack at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, state's one of those things. It's like, I don't know that we have like anything planned per se, but I mean, like state, it's like, state works great. Like you just grab Terraform or OpenTofu, you working with it. State's great. It's sitting right there in your Git repo. It's fantastic until, you run into all the problems of it sitting right there in your Git repo, right? So one of the things that's really interesting though is like looking at some of the stuff that we're trying to do. There's a lot of issues that were open on Terraform and a lot of PRs that were open on Terraform that were just never prioritized, either because it would create some sort of competition with Terraform Cloud, or that put maybe their position at risk, which is fine. And your business, like you're free to do that. But in the meantime, like the industry wants things to exist in Terraform that aren't being merged, right? And so we're taking that into consideration. Like we want to get that stuff that the community wants to exist in the library into the library. So like one of the things that you don't see in Terraform State is the ability to use workspaces with an HTTP backend for your state. Like, why is that? Like it works for all the other state stores. It's like, well, because if workspaces worked with an HTTP backend, like that would give like the tacos vendors, the Terraform automation and collaboration software vendors, a leg up. Right now, right? Like now they have to go to essentially build something to get workspaces to work with their backend, right? So like these are the kind of things that we want to get this functionality into OpenTofu because people have been waiting for it, right? So if you have an issue that you've opened on Terraform or a PR that you've opened there, we would love to hear about it. Go through the RFC process, figure out how to get involved. What we can't do is have that code just copy and pasted into a new PR for OpenTofu, or like links to like the source code or the PRs. Like we go through a lot to make sure that we do not get exposed to their registry or their source code. But if there are issues that you've been waiting for in Terraform that don't seem to be getting merged, like we'd love to hear about it. We've got a great community and a discussion thread going on in GitHub. We also have Slack, so definitely want to hear about the things that people are looking to have included in HCL and Terraform and OpenTofu.
It's funny, it is a community engagement, right? At the end of the day, it's open source projects, so
yeah, it's funny. It's really funny. Like, I mean, I will say, like, this is me as Corey O'Daniel, not necessarily a representative of OpenTofu, because I think that all the companies involved have like different tolerances for what they will or won't say. But like, personally, when I watch this whole thing happen, we're not impacted by the license changes. Massdriver is not impacted by the license changes of Terraform. We kind of compete more with their Waypoint product, and so there's a cutout in the licensing where if you compete with one product but use another, the license changes don't affect you. But what I saw was like I'm like a person that am I allowed to cuss on here? Like I don't really like bullshit, and seeing them say that all these companies were just stealing their market share, repurposing Terraform. It's like, no, like, there's definitely some companies that are competing with Terraform Cloud, and Terraform Cloud needs that competition. Like Terraform Cloud needs to be a better product, in my opinion. I've sold a lot of Terraform Cloud as a consultant, but what was interesting was one of the reasons they said they did it was because the community, like people weren't giving back. And it's like, no, people very much were trying to give back. People were opening issues, having PRs hang forever. And Terraform even announced that they were going to stop accepting open source contributions, right? That was like maybe 2 years ago, right? So like they made it very hard to be a part of the community, but then said, well, the community's not there. Well, the thing that was really interesting for me was reaching out to people that are my competitors. The community's there. Like there's like 6 or 7 companies that all compete for the same market. We all get along. We talk in Slack. We make jokes. We see each other at reInvent. We're all working on something together. Like these people wanted to contribute. They weren't being allowed to contribute. So the idea that this license change was, to protect the business of HashiCorp, and they had to do it because nobody wanted to contribute, like that's false. That's absolutely false. People do want to contribute, and there's a great community being built around OpenTofu. So I'm hoping that we can continue to bring people over. And I think based on the last state of open source report, like it's starting to look pretty good. I'm not sure if anybody's seen this, but the state of open source report, OpenTofu adoption has reached Pulumi adoption. So both about 7.8% of respondents to the state of open source report, where Terraform has about 22.8%. So the use of OpenTofu is growing. People are starting to play with it. We're starting to see it surpass other IAC tools, which is pretty exciting. So there's a community here. Like we want to make a great product that everybody can use, and it's not really dictated how features get in there based on one vendor's opinion. So sorry, that was a soapbox. Our database is done though. Okay. So
well, the apply is complete, right? That's always a good sign. So
let's get weird. So sorry that I'm not used to my font being this big, so I'm like very weird and clicky. So what first thing I do is let's make a change here. We'll just change the retention period on this. And then we can apply it now with OpenTofu, or we can do a Terraform init and switch it back to Terraform and do the apply there. Depends on what do you want to do. You want to just see OpenTofu, or you want to see the interop?
I don't know. Do whatever you feels best. Like,
okay, let's do this. We'll just apply it again. We'll make the change, and then we'll Terraform init, and then we'll make the change again, just so everybody knows that we can actually change things with OpenTofu. So there we go. Apply starting to run, pulling all the resources. Get prompt. There's two things that are going to change here. So this is just a side effect of one of the providers that we're using. So this is a provider that we build, the master ever published. So if you're ever like frustrated with CIDR addresses and you don't want to deal with them, or if you're an ops person and like occasionally like your devs need to interact with CIDR and they haven't, read Net Plus or A Plus book, it's been a while for them. What this does is it lets you focus more on the network size that you want. And so for things like, I need Postgres, which all of a sudden there's this like network requirement in Azure, your devs don't have to go learn CIDR math and figure out how to cut up a subnet. What this does is just focus on how many IP addresses do you need. And what it'll actually do is it'll scan your account and it'll find a non-conflicting subnet that you can use. So that's what this is. It's just picked up that there's another subnet that might be a conflict with this. So unrelated to OpenTofu, but it's a very cool provider if you do a lot of stuff with subnets. So let's change this backup retention from 30 to 7. And this should just take a couple of minutes. What else can we talk about while that's going on? I can give you some news. You want to intersperse some news while we're...
Any news? I did read, right? You guys just went GA, right? So
GA, yeah. So the GA is out. So 1.6 is generally available and out. We're started working towards 1.7. So all the functionality that's in Terraform 1.6 also exists in OpenTofu. We also got some exciting stuff going on. We're going to be at FOSDEM, Config Management Camp, and KubeCon Paris. There's actually an entire day dedicated to OpenTofu. So there's an OpenTofu day. There's a number of talks, keynotes, sessions. So if you're going to be at KubeCon, FOSDEM, Config Management, come by. There's also some pretty cool swag. I believe we're making OpenTofu oven mitts. So come check out what we've got cooking. Sorry.
I've never seen that before. I'd be attracted by the oven mitts alone, right?
And I was like, I love this. Sweet. So FOSDEM, Config Management Camp, KubeCon Paris, whole day there. As noted, I want to give you links to all this stuff too, so you can share with everybody. We also have our,
that'd be great.
CNCF application is open. And then we have on our GitHub, if you go to OpenTofu/OpenTofu contribute, there are a whole bunch of good first issues. So if you're interested in doing some open source contributions, maybe you haven't done this before and you want something that's a bit more bite-sized, we've gone through and tagged a bunch of issues that we think are pretty easy to get in and start working on. So there's a lot of good first issues there if you're interested in helping. Okay, let's get weird. Let's do some interoperability. So I'm going to do Terraform, init, upgrade. And then we just changed this backup retention to 7 days. So I'm going to go ahead and swap the config back to 30. And then once this is reinitialized, we'll do a Terraform apply to swap it back, and then we'll re-init, and then we'll tear it down with OpenTofu.
So I just wanted to mention, we haven't changed working directories. We using the same state file. All you've done is just you've initialized the binaries, right, between OpenTofu and Terraform.
Yep. And so effectively what's happening there is, in the in both the binaries, they have like a default address for where your registry is. And so why are we doing this init? Well, it's re-downloading these modules and providers from the registry in each one of these binaries and checking that everything's signed correctly. Cool. So I'll go back to this exact same command, same variables, terraform apply, and this should switch our retention period from 7 back to 30. That's pretty cool.
Look at that. Seamless. Yeah.
I know, like, this is one of those ones, I'm sure you have like demos where it's like there's super exciting, like really cool stuff going on, but like the mundaneness of this is what's exciting about it. Like the idea that, right. So, there's lots of ways to start experimenting with OpenTofu. So if you've got a mature Terraform code base and like, let's say you can't spare the CI cycles, just install it locally. And when you're working through your Terraform plan, locally, like just switch it to just install Tofu, do Tofu plan. Like, let us know if anything weird happens. We'd love to know. You'll see that there is like some tools in the Terraform ecosystem that work with OpenTofu, some that don't. So like tflint just works. tfenv, I believe, does not work, and they're not going to support OpenTofu. So there is an OpenTofu version of that, but a lot of the Terraform tools just work. There we go. I don't even remember what tool we just used. Was that Terraform? That was Terraform. So there we used Terraform to swap that back. Now I can do Tofu init upgrade to swap it back to OpenTofu, and then we can do a tear down there.
I don't know what it is with ops people, but we love watching pipelines fail, watching Terraform Terraform/Tofu applies fail, right? Like, how many times have we, it's like hypnotic. It's like back in the day, you used to watch the Windows installation screen, right? When you was doing servers, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
We might have a break on this destroy. I had one earlier. It's a side effect of the module, but earlier I had the network try to get deleted while the database was eventual consistency.
Right.
There was a little bit of database still on the subnet, so when I destroyed earlier today, it was like, hey, the network's still in use, and I'm like, try again in a couple of minutes. So maybe we'll get a failure, and that'd be cool to see.
That's do you know what? That happens so many times, right? Trips over its own shoelaces, kind of thing. So
blow this thing up. Sorry, Postgres. Initialized and never used. I feel bad about that. I love a good Postgres. There we go. There it goes. Can I tell you that one thing? I'm not sure who's listening if they work across different clouds, but one thing I love about Azure is the IDs are just actual URLs, like URL paths. Like there's so much there's like information encoded in the ID that I'm just like, I feel like I can look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, great. Like I know what resource.
You know what you're deploying, right? Yeah.
Nope. And it's like GCP does URL paths as well, but I think it's just like a bag of UUIDs. So it's just like, okay, cool. That's in the format of a URL, but not really helpful. But like that information right there, I love it. Even be able to see like the nesting for the subnet.
So while that's destroying, because that might take a little while, why don't, if you stop sharing your screen, I'll share mine, and I'll just go through the OpenTofu website very quickly, right? Just so folks know what it looks like and how things are going. So
there you go.
Share my screen. Yeah, can we see that?
Yeah.
I mean, when I was reading up on this, like the site's up, everything, but again, social media links are at the top. I encourage you to join the Slack channel. It's entertaining sometimes to be in there, so just join it, right, for the entertainment value alone, right? But it's great to be, ask questions, get involved, that kind of thing. Yeah, like try it out. So, like you were saying, we got the packages, Alpine Linux, very popular, right, in the container space, Debian Linux, and other derivatives there. So Ubuntu, Red Hat, Snap, Homebrew. I think that's going to be my go-to be quite honest. But in Windows as well, right? So I know a lot of developers are using Windows Subsystem for Linux, right, inside of their Windows operating system. So either use the Debian approach, right, or use Homebrew, right? Whatever your poison is. But it's good to see that it's there, and you've got a migration process as well, right, to go through. So crawl, walk, and run, as I like to call it as well. Just confidence. It's all about confidence building, right? So get it installed, back up your I love that. Back up your state file. That's someone that's someone that's lived through some pain, right? I wouldn't even have done that, right? But it's pretty true. But yeah, then initializing, right? Inspecting it. So inspect the plan. Like all the basics, like, you're basically doing an acid test, right? Making sure there's no leaks, that kind of thing on the seals.
Exactly.
Someone who was really cautious wrote this documentation, so kudos to that person.
Yeah, the team's super. I mean, the team's super thorough. The team is working on it. Like they care. They're
Yeah.
excited about it, right? Like, I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, kind of going back to that. The community isn't there. Like, it is here, right? Like, the reality is, a lot of the people that are working on OpenTofu, the organizations that are behind it, like, I'm a software developer. I've been developing for 20 years, but like, I'd say day in, day out, I probably write a lot more HCL than the other stuff. I mean, I work in an infrastructure oriented company. But like, this is the language I program in. Like, I like it. I love it. Right. Like, I know people love to kind of dog on writing Terraform and HCL, but like, this is my livelihood. Right. And so like, there are people that are excited about the technology. They're excited about the space, right? Like Terraform and HCL kind of became the lingua franca of how to configure and manage infrastructure, right? Like these people are excited about it, and they put a lot of effort into every part of the job that they do.
I completely agree, because I was infrastructure folks, like we had to become developers, right? So that was a steep learning curve, right? It was, especially for me at the time. So once you've got used to how something works, right, and you've learned how to become like a developer and use an IDE and all that good stuff, you just want to make that as painless as possible, right? So
yeah,
how are we looking on your side? Is it nearly destroyed, or is it still just burning it down now?
I have my subnet issue. You want to see it? You want to see a failure?
No, let's go.
Subnet.
Let me stop sharing.
I knew it. Oh, there we go. It's subnet. So this is, I think this is just like
if you run it again, it'll probably destroy it, right? So
it's like, oh, no, it's like, oh, well, that subnet's in use, and you run it again. It's like, just
it'll do it instantly now, right? Just blow it away.
Yeah. You sure you want to get rid of that subnet? Okay.
It wouldn't be HCL, right, if it didn't do this. Come on. Yeah, there we go. No
CFO mad at me because I have some demo infrastructure running.
I'm sure you'll be able to square it away, right? Just...
we have a lot of Azure credits. It's fine.
That's awesome. No, again, I don't know if you've got anything else to add, Corey, but I've loved the demo. We deployed something, we made changes using OpenTofu, then we made other changes, going back to Terraform, right, to see that interoperability, see if that works, right, consistently. All the processes are pretty much the same, right? It's just syntax differences, that kind of thing, right, on the CLI. I mean, the destroy failed the first time round as well, so we know it's pretty much on feature parity there. I'll be honest. I've never had it where it's been completely clean, right? It's rare, right? So, but yeah, is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up at all?
No, again, just like, a call for any support. Like I said, there's about 60 contributors that are already working on the product. We have a lot of support and like financial support and just developer support from a lot of different companies, including Cloudflare, BuildKite, starting to see people like Masterpoint doing their migration, Harness is involved. So there's a lot of people that are starting to contribute to the project, but what really makes this successful or not is the community, right? And so there is a ton of stuff that people want to see in Terraform. Like, let us know. And if you can spare a CI cycle to clone one of your pipelines and swap just a plan with OpenTofu, we very much appreciate that, and any feedback you can give us about those CI pipelines. But that's about it.
That's awesome. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show. Where can people find you online? Unless you don't want to be found. Where's the best place for? Is it just the Slack channel or what? Right.
So I'm definitely in the OpenTofu Slack. If you're looking for me, I'm Corey O'Daniel everywhere, almost everywhere. I recently signed up for Reddit, and I'm not Corey O'Daniel there because I was told that people like to remain anonymous. So I'm Corey apostrophe there. But Corey O'Daniel on Twitter, Corey O'Daniel on LinkedIn, Corey apostrophe on Reddit. Always happy to chat. OpenTofu, cloud infrastructure. I'm also a Kubernetes and taco nerd. So if you want opinions,
nice. Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks very much. Again, thanks to everyone that's watched this episode. If you like what you've seen, don't forget to like, share, and repeat. Until the next time, bye for now.
Yeah.